don't get into like any sort of like real estate brokerages, real estate in general. Like there's a lot of stuff to play around with. That kind of sucks. Large like B2B commercial things, like where it would feel so like if you're because you're gonna have local contractors or those types. Don't do those. Those ones are the sales cycle super long. You might be able to get a cool one that they're like, all I care about is leads, and then I'll close them in 12 to 18 months. That might be what they're looking for, and that could work. That's the vast majority, though. It just doesn't end up doing what you'd expect to.
Hey everyone, this is Mark DeGrasse, the president of Digital Marketer, and this is the podcast that keeps you up to date on everything you need to know when it comes to digital marketing, from the platforms you should be focused on, like tactics and tools that are working today. Today our guest is Justin Rondeau, the co-owner and president of InvisiblePPC and former GM for Digital Marketer, as well as a kind of digitalmarketer.com OG. So that's fun. With his new agency, though, he's actually done over 165 million in ads, leading to 8.6 million conversions in the local service specifically, which is actually our topic today. So we're going to be talking about, what is the best candidate for local pay-per-click? Because believe it or not, everybody isn't. And so, Justin, welcome to the show. I'm excited to talk about who PPC is good for.
Oh man, thanks for having me. And this is really one of those things that people just assume like pay-per-click, whether you're in the local business space or like whatever industry, and that like Google pay-per-click specifically is going to be the savior. That it's going to be the answer, the truth, the light. And the fact of the matter is, for a lot of people, it isn't. And it just doesn't flat out work for some people. But in some industries, in some niches, in a lot of them, it is. You're almost like perfectly positioned to be on Google Ads. So yeah, it's a matter of making sure like it goes back to stuff that, I mean, you've probably talked about on the show here, that you've talked about on all sorts of different podcasts. That's like, are you on the right, like, do you have an audience channel match for where you're advertising? And it comes back to that real basic thing that everybody skips over because it's like, oh, Google Ads, run it, or oh, Facebook Ads, run it. That is the worst thing you could possibly do, especially when you're working with budgets that are, near and dear to the business owners' hearts, especially in that local service world. They feel that pain. They see that money going out, right? So you want to make sure that if you pick an ad network and you're being prescriptive in how you're doing these types of things, that you're picking the right ones and setting them up for success.
Well, and it's funny because it seems obvious when you say, because if you say like, oh, social TikTok works for all businesses, and you look at people and you're just like, no, it doesn't. Like that's not true at all. Same is true for like LinkedIn and B2C and, Instagram, and any channel you have isn't going to for sure work. But with pay-per-click, it's always like, oh yeah, I could help any business get any amount of sales and blah, 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 which, I mean, technically, if you spend enough money on ads and you don't care about profitability or ROI, then yeah.
If you want to go broke, if you want to go broke real fast, you can do that. But yeah, the thing I've noticed with Google Ads, and actually this was a strategy we used at Digital Marketer way back in the day, was we actually only focused on mid to bottom funnel like advertisements on Google Ads. So it was very much specific to like pretty much sticking to remarketing, as well as anybody that we'd identify that would be kind of like more of like MoFu to BoFu. Because what you want to do is you want Google Ads to be at that kind of like lower end of the funnel. You want to be as close to the conversion action as possible. One, because it's easier to calculate. Like you're like, oh, did we get the sale, or did we book the meeting? Was it qualified, et cetera, if you're in the lead gen side of things, which is generally what we do. But you want to get as close as you can. And then you have people that are more like they're in a decision-making process. Like with Google specifically, when they're searching for something, and like in the local world, like say you have somebody looking for a plumber, right? The fact of the matter is, you don't have to be the best plumber out there. You have to show up first. Yeah. You have to show up first, and they have to believe you. Right? That's why so when you're thinking about like, should this client be on Google Ads, it's really, what is the state that the searcher is in at that time? You need to be asking those questions, and are you giving them the opportunity to relieve that pain point, right? Or to kind of have an answer to that. You don't want to go top level branded type things on Google Ads. There are brand ads that you want to be doing in the local world. You run those, but it's a smaller part of your budget. You want to be thinking through like, what are the actual, like, what are the problems that they're having when they're searching, and how can we make sure that we show up as fast as possible? And then the next step is make sure that we're following up with those leads right away. If they're calling, you're answering the damn phone, you're doing those types of things. But yeah, like, that's the first step. Is if you're like, we're going to run Google ads for this company, great. Where in the funnel is the searcher at that point of time? And is this business poised to, and you want to get them, deeper at that middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. And is that business able to, close that in a very quick period of time, essentially?
Well, that point alone is huge, because if you say like bottom of funnel, like that just eliminates a lot of candidates for like, is this going to be good? Because if the buyer isn't instantly looking for a commercial solution, which is really what you're talking about, where it's like, okay, my pipe burst, so I look up, fix my sink, and that's when you want to show up, not, how do I fix? Oh, then that's another good point too, is the organic search versus the action search.
And organic is that is your top of funnel. So do your organic work. Make sure you're showing up like in local SEO and just standard SEO. Like, make sure you're doing that. That's your top of the funnel, right? That should start then building in your audiences, right? You don't need to play that game of trying to boost your organic stuff with paid. Like, that's not the game you want to be playing. You want to be like, I want any dollar I'm putting in here, I want to have the purpose of that is to get me more calls, is to get me more jobs, is to get me XYZ. That's how you have to be thinking about Google PPC when you're working kind of like that local service world.
That's fantastic. So, in terms of agencies, because I know we talked a little bit before we started the show, in terms of like over promising, setting up that expectation for your pay-per-click, where, people have that expectation. They see the dollars coming out, and, they will instantly assign blame, is usually how it works. Like, you said I was going to make $1 million, or maybe you didn't even say that. Well, because you could be an agency and go in and say, hey, this is a process. We need to figure it out. We have to do our A/B testing. It's going to take 6 to 8 weeks to even get the first conversion. And you try to set up these expectations, but if you take that wrong client, it's just going to be bad no matter what you do. So let's just talk about, like, what are the best candidates for PPC campaigns locally, and what are some of the worst candidates?
Cool. And I'll share this with you too. We actually have this thing we have these this concept called smart niches. We've identified 64 of them, and then we have emerging ones that are popping up where we have all of these data points. I can send it to you. You can toss it in the show notes for people so they can take a look at that. But what we saw like in the last year that has really been performing well, like for specific niches. So I'm not going to talk in the abstract of they need to have XYZ. Like, here's some that just work and have been working. Ones that are, that's kind of the standard type of things you'd expect to see. Like, med spas are huge right now.
Really?
Those are doing, they're doing very, very well. We have a lot of great med spa clients, and they crush it. You have, this one's kind of sad. Divorce lawyers. We saw an uptick there. Actually, COVID caused a lot of things. And the lockdown caused a lot of things. And then just supply chain issues caused a lot of things. So we saw three emerging issues three things that really peaked in the last 12 months. It's going to be and one has nothing to do with COVID, but it has to do with people getting old, like generations. So you have on the generational side of things, elder care. Holy crap. That one's huge. Unfortunately, funeral services have gone up, and in terms of like how people are, like in terms of niches that are just getting better performance, more people are searching for it. More people have a direct need for that, unfortunately. Divorce lawyers, like I just said, people got sick of being locked down with their spouse, apparently. And then one that's like less morbid, I guess.
Let's go with the positive.
It's actually like auto body shops. That one is a really interesting one that popped up, because if you think about with supply chain, people couldn't get a new car, or they could barely get a used car, so they had to get their car fixed.
Well, that makes so much sense, because if you look at the average car these days, I think the average new car is now $46,000 or something.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Well, I was talking to one of my, assistant, or Cameron, our coordinator, and I was like, when I was a kid, like a new car was like 17,000, like 17 to 25, 50 got you like ridiculous stuff. And 100 was like, there were only like 3 cars that were 100,000. So that's got to be volume. So the inflation is actually the cause of some of those issues. So is it all kind of, those are the rising industries.
Those are the rising ones. Yeah.
Are there evergreen ones? Because I know you mentioned like
Yeah.
plumbers. That's always a good
Yeah.
one.
Plumbers, dentists, roofers. Dentists are killer. Like they're great. They have money. And when they start seeing results, they're happy about
They're
it.
like,
And
okay, go.
they have solid entry point offers as well. So when you're evaluating niches, like what you want to be looking at too is like the reason why plumbers, roofers, dentists, those types of work is they have a vast array of different types of offers that they could have that can get people in the door, like this standard entry point offer type thing of like, hey, we'll trim your trees for $90. And while they're up there, guess what they're going to do? They're going to upsell you to oblivion. Be like, hey, we should really knock some of these things out. We can do that. We can also like knock that tree down, do stumping services, get rid of all that. And then bam, you got it. Roofers are another example. Yeah.
Conversion offers. There you go.
Exactly. They have the slack adjusters. They have the things that cost a lot. Like plumbers, like they're going to look at pipes. They're going to be looking at, and while they're there, they're like, hey, notice that your septic system might need an overhaul. Do you want us to do like a free camera through that thing and see it? Like it creates a conversation that will lead to higher revenue. And so they can spend a little bit more to get these types of jobs because they know what the customer lifetime value is out of like being able to upsell and cross-sell them across the board. Obviously ethically, like not just trying to sell like garbage to people, but
no,
yeah,
it's so true. Well, and just so everybody knows, like most plumbers and most companies still haven't figured out the customer lifetime value thing. So there's still tons of opportunities, which is why you could always run these ads and get people who are like, well, my last plumber was was terrible. I didn't show up and whatever. And people just replace these services. So if you're good and you do the pay-per-click campaign and you use the conversion tool instead of trying to sell people, your big, mega service or whatever it is, just get in the door with the, bottom of funnel ads and start to convert them and do a good job. And then you'll make your profitability over time. So I love that.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
With all that said, what are some candidates there? Just like, don't try to sell these companies PPC.
Don't get into like any sort of like real estate brokerages, real estate in general. Like there's a lot of stuff to play around with. That kind of sucks. Large like B2B commercial things, like where it would feel so like if because you're gonna have local contractors or those types. Don't do those. Those ones are the sales cycle super long. You might be able to get a cool one that they're like, all I care about is leads, and then I'll close them in 12 to 18 months. That might be what they're looking for, and that could work. That's the vast majority, though. It just doesn't end up doing what you'd expect to. Yeah, like
well, they're not going to kill it. They're not going to be like, oh, I started the campaign, 10x my revenue, and
it's and they'd have a real hard time connecting it because they're probably going to ask like, would those people have found us anyways? Would they have converted anyways? And there's a lot of stuff that comes into question. Hold on, let me pull up real quick. We have a list of things. So we're like, just do not do this.
Do not. Yeah, I love that.
Do this under any circumstance. Let me find it real quick. And if I can't find,
Well, I love how you have these lists too. I mean, that you kind of evaluated all the markets because a lot of a lot of agencies and marketers are just opportunistic, where it's like, well, somebody asked me to do this, and so I did it, and then another person asked me to do that, so then I did that.
I hate to interrupt our podcast, but I have an announcement about digital marketers' content certification. Content without a content marketing strategy is an expensive mistake, but it's one that most businesses are making. When it comes to content marketing, all content should be created with a clear purpose to move a customer or potential customer along the customer value journey. That's why you need Digital Marketers Content Mastery Certification. You'll learn how to leverage a complete content system to strategize, create, and distribute content that just plain works. When you become a certified content marketing strategist, you'll master the craft of systematically creating and promoting content that drives noticeable revenue for any business, and you'll get a badge to prove it. Learn more right now at digitalmarketer.com/content-cert.
Do you think in order to be like a real PPC agency, you have to focus, like you have to niche down to just PPC?
I don't think you have to just be like you can offer PPC as I don't think you need to just be a pure PPC agency. I think the people who do that are going to try to do there's two ways to skin this cat, essentially. One, if you're going to be just a PPC agency, you can have multiple niches or industries that you serve. Because what you're saying is like, I'm the best at pay-per-click, right? That gets really tough to scale though. Because like e-commerce clients are going to need more help, like need a whole different set of considerations and development work than your like local lead gen, or a SaaS client is going to need more than a media publisher, or if you're running your own ads for an agency, like they perform very differently than all of the other things I just mentioned. So if you're trying to figure out what you're wanting to do as an agency, or you're trying to specialize, if you choose to to niche or specialize by your discipline, then that gives you more freedom to do multiple types of ventures. But even then, you should be like, I do PPC for ecom. You should just do that. Like that's your ideal scenario. On the other side, like you can be an agency that offers multiple arrays of services. But and when you're in those cases, that's when you definitely want to be tight on a particular niche or industry. You don't want to. You'd end up being a jack of all trades, which you don't want to be. You want to be like, hey, I'm the best at working with lawn care companies. I can make your lawn care company this much more money. I'm not just generating you leads. I'm not just generating you like more business, but I'm going to do everything it takes from the second they see your brand to everything that happens after the fact, and all the touch points, and making sure that we're getting them into more jobs for you. I can do that because I've done it with this many folks. Like it just gets so much more specialized, right? So you kind of pick a lane. Do you pick it by discipline? Do you pick it by industry? And either one you go, the more narrow you get, the better. Because the more specific you can speak to their pain points, talk the talk, walk the walk, get them the results, the better off you're going to be.
No, that sounds. I mean, it sounds easy. Trying to give you.
It's so hard. It's so hard. It's so hard. Like I sound like, and I know I sounded super confident, and that was like, this is how everybody must do. It's something we struggle with this, right? Like at our company, tempting, we struggle with it. You're just like, oh, hey, money, woo,
yeah, money.
Like,
I could do it.
yeah, exactly. I could crush that, and it's so hard. It doesn't matter what stage you're in either. It's always you could be the most seasoned veteran. You're going to see something come in that's a little outside of what your focal point is, and you're going to be like, but we could do that.
Yeah, well, and sometimes it might be even that it's not even that you need the money. You could just be bored and be like, well, I got this industry down, so it's time to expand.
But like, the thing is, like when you get that itch, it's like, if you're starting to get bored, boring businesses make money, one. Yeah. If you're starting to get bored, hire a general manager for your company and then go do something else.
Yeah.
Like,
take a vacation.
Do not upset. Or just take a vacation. Like, maybe you just break. But yeah, like in this space, you do need to be focusing. Like, are you a generalist agency that works with specific clients, or are you do you have a specific practice that works with multiple types of clients? Is kind of how you look at it.
Is the decision. So I love that. And I love all the advice for agencies in terms of, because we talk about niching in every segment of marketing. It's just like, man, your life could be so much easier if you just got really, really good and had 50 case studies and had a bunch of stats and first party data from the results for a specific industry. And then sales will come super easy. And then the meetings will go super easy. And then the referrals will come super easy. And all these things will get easy. But having the discipline to say no is the hard part.
Yeah, we literally sent an email today that was letting our entire list know that, hey, we've always worked primarily with local service businesses, but now we're just saying that's all we're going to work with.
Love that.
So because I mean, like all the stuff you said with first party data and those types of things, like we have all that. We have 11 years worth. Like it's tons of data points to work with. So why would we try to reinvent the wheel and like take on like something that's outside of our unique genius and also sets us up to fail, really? Because like imagine your first experience, like if someone worked with us and they're like, I have ecom clients, e-commerce, like at our sister company, we can do that all day, but we don't have a good white label procedure for that. Like candidly, like I guess this isn't candid. Maybe it is. Yeah. So candidly is just being open. So it doesn't matter. It's just I was thinking, I was like, secret time. It's not secret time.
Oh, crap. I'm on a podcast.
But like, that's just a bad experience. And then someone's gonna be like, oh, I used IPPC. They weren't that great. And they'll be like, well, what'd you use them for? Like, we don't want to have to be able to have those caveats. Like, we want people to be like, whenever they work with us, they had the best result because we set them up to succeed. Just like I said, when you're calling your shot on clients for Google PPC, we're calling our shot on the people that we're willing to.
I love that. Well, and I think if all agencies did that, you'd have a bunch of awesome specialists that just refer each other all the time, and you'd have a whole network of successful companies.
Yep. Yep, exactly.
But that's all right. We'll keep trying to convince people. So if you could tell, let's see, a marketer that's looking to get into the PPC business, what's the best way to get started? Like the ideal way to set up your PPC offering to make a killing. Like what would you tell them to do?
Well, price more than you think you're about to. Because anybody getting in, they're gonna be like, oh, like I'm new to this, so I need someone to take a chance on me, those types of things. Sure, I get that, but most people I'm seeing right now, one, they don't charge like setup fees, which is crazy pants to me in the PPC world, because you're front loaded. There's so much work that has to happen early on. So not to say that there's less work that happens later, like optimizing and scaling campaigns is a lot of hard work. But a lot of stuff is front loaded. Like when you're taking on an account, you're going to do an account audit. You're going to build new campaign architecture. You're going to write all the copy. You're going to design all the ads. You're going to build the landing page. You're going to QA test everything. You're going to build a dashboard. You're going to do all sorts of other things. That's a lot of things, and you should be paid for that. So like in a world where I know a lot of agency advice is, hey, like there's the one set of advice that's like, hey, like have setup fees, then be like, hey, I'll waive it for you. I'm not saying have setup fees in that way. That's dumb. In this case, there are hard costs to what you're doing. There's time associated with this. And like they can see everything you did. You're like, hey, I built you a landing page, bro. Yeah. Like I built that. That costs this much money. Like you can line item what you'd be doing in setup. Like a setup that I just kind of like talked about there, for a local business, you should be charging anywhere between like $1,500 to like $3,000 for that.
Easy. You're not making money on that. Just so everybody knows, it's like you're going to charge this and it's going to cost. Like, yes, it's not making money.
Exactly. You're not getting rich off of setup. Like the way PPC, like where you make your money as a PPC agency is, or really as any agency, I guess, is on those residuals, is on that recurring base, right? Think of this as a SaaS company. Think of this in a way of like, I need to be building monthly recurring revenue. That is what PPC is all about. And when you're doing this, so you have your setup fees, then your monthly management fees. Those would be anywhere. You'd probably end up kind of like starting around like between $1,000 to like baseline with like up to a certain amount of spend, like maybe like $1,000 to like $2,000 a month, and then have that as a baseline. And then after a certain level of spend, it's that plus a percentage of spend that kind of goes over time. But most of you that were probably listening are like, I'm going to get into PPC. I bet you had like a $500 offer in mind. You will make no money. You will go broke and you will go crazy if you do that. Do not do it that way.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, best case scenario is you sign 20 people at $500 setup, and now you're not only unable to service them, but you will do a bad job.
They will be out. Exactly. And then one of the things you also need to do, so like that's kind of price point type things that you should be thinking about if you're going to be getting in this space and being taken seriously. The other side of it is really like the expectations you set. So your setup fees are going to be indicative of all the work that you do up front. Maybe like you don't do landing pages, you don't do other things, charge less, right? But when you have somebody that's now like, yeah, I want to work with you, like, great, like this sounds awesome. Now it's the time for setting the right expectations. You always speak in ranges. You never speak in definitives. Not because you're trying to be like elusive, like you're like, you can't catch me. It's because every client will hear the best case scenario. So the cheapest price for the fastest amount of time. They will, it's not like they're trying to do that. They will remember all of those. So if you said to somebody, oh yeah, like we can, like, I could expect us like to get down to like, $50 leads in this niche. The minute you start running ads, why isn't it 50 yet?
Yeah. Oh God, no, that's such a good point. It's like, I said that would be eventually, but people don't hear that. They hear $50.
Yeah. So then if 50 is like your best case scenario, throw that in the middle of the range. Like it can be anywhere from 30 to 100 to 100. It's going to take us, like, as we're starting out and building things and we're feeding data into the Google machine and we're optimizing, like it's going to take 60 to 90 days to start getting down to that mid range. Like in the first 30 days, you could expect to be, 10, 15% above that top range. But when you're having these conversations with them, make sure the conversations aren't focused around just like cost per lead and lead generation. Talk through like, hey, like what's the value of a lead? What are you, Mr. or Mrs. Client, willing to spend to generate a lead, to generate a qualified call, to generate a customer? If they don't know those numbers, come with some examples of like what this looks like. Like, normally in this industry, we see, 40% of these leads end up being qualified calls. So a qualified call, how many, like if you get a qualified call, like how many of those would you say you close? They're always going to say higher, but use it anyways. It's like, hey, we close around 20%. Let's say, hey, you just did 10.
Yeah.
So that means, and what's the average cost? Cool. So then you can work backwards on that and talk like, this is what you should be able to spend. So work with them on that, on like what their pain threshold is essentially to generate leads. And then from there, you're talking, you're not just being like their lead jockey. You're that person that's connected to their business. You've transitioned, and that should be happening during the onboarding phase, right? You need to be talking about these types of things. And then why you're hitting a certain goal. They know why you're going for a certain thing. And you've set timelines. It's like, hey, by about 90 days, we should be like humming and hawing away. Like we should be within those ranges at any given time. Some months are going to be on the lower end. Other ones are going to be on the upper end, but we should be kind of hitting in here. And we're always going to be kind of working towards like improving that. If there's any shifts where we start seeing, like new competition has kind of rolled in, or like we're losing impression share because of that, then we'll make recommendations accordingly, and we'll adjust targets accordingly. But you need to be speaking to them as peers, and not as as if you're working for them, right?
I would say even go a step farther where you say
not even peers,
not even peers. You are the authority.
Yeah, you're the expert.
Like you are the marketer. And I think one of the things that I do this personally too, where you kind of downplay how much work something's going to be. You'll be like, oh yeah, I could set that up over a weekend. And then you're setting that expectation that the job that you're doing is easy, which is bad right off the bat. So stop doing that right away. Marketing's complicated. It's involved, it's scientific, it's formulaic, it's all these different things, but it's not simple or easy. It might be for you, but nobody needs to know how easy it is for you anyways. You should be like, I've done this a million times, but I'm not going to say that your case is going to be the same. So you can still preface it with, yeah, it is easy for me, but you're saying it's easy for me. It's not easy in general. So I'd say, yeah, setting that expectation, setting the formula, setting the, the statistics based on your previous results, and really getting in line with the, the owner of the company or whoever you're dealing with that the company is, going to set you up for success. Well, yeah, much more so.
Yeah, as much success as you could have in the wild world that is marketing, and also pay-per-click marketing. There's so many variables that can, and as long as they know the game, and you're articulating that, then you're good to go. Exactly. If you're promising like, oh, we'll get you this many leads. If you're saying we can get you 30 more jobs per month or this thing, and like out of the gate, and then you do like the Hermosi offer and all this other stuff, like you're gonna lose. You're just gonna lose. You can't do it.
It's not gonna work.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think everything you said is prefaced on you need to know what the heck you're doing with PPC before you go sell people on it, because that's a temptation too. Is like, okay, yeah, I'll figure it out. It'll be fine, and that you're saying yourself up failure.
You can't figure it out on even some of those, like in some world, like in the SaaS game and those things, there's a lot of big budgets where you could try to fake it till you make it, which I wouldn't recommend doing, because you will get caught. And that's not good. It's a smaller world. The agency world in this world is much smaller than you think it is. Everybody knows each other.
Yes. And
it's
there's
wild.
not a ton. Well, I think there's turnover of agency owners and marketers in general, because they'll leave. Yeah. Well, I think it's been okay.
Oh yeah, I just want to finish one last point on that. The point I was trying to make is like, when they have these higher budgets, there's more room for like opportunity to fail and learn on the job. When you're working with local businesses, you're working with people that are going to be spending $2,000, $4,000 a month. Like when you start finding people at the $10,000, $20,000 mark, like, all right, cool. Like now you have some actual budget to work with.
Yes.
You're working with, and that $2,000, $4,000 that they're spending is meaningful to them. Like it is a good portion of what they're doing. It's more meaningful than probably at the 10, 20 and more, right? So you have less data to learn from. So you need to know your chops or be working with someone that does. And two, just like there is a real pain for those people there, and they're going to be on top of it. So so it's harder to fake it till you make it at that stage.
Yeah, well, and I think we should just do a whole series on this. So we'll have you back soon, and we'll I think we just walk through like, here's how to do a PPC agency, and literally outline the whole thing. I think that people would love that. So if you do like that, please, comment on wherever we're posting this and we'll put that together. Well, thank you so
Awesome.
much, Justin.
Absolutely,
Really
Mark.
appreciate all the tips. I mean, that was just, just a bucket of tips right there that everybody should take to heart. Where can people learn more about you and what you do?
Nice. You can check us out at InvisiblePPC.com. That's be the first place to go if you're in the agency space. Really killer thing. We also have some other, like our other companies, Kuware.com. That's our full service agency. We work directly with end clients there. And also PPCreveal.ai is one of our tools that we have. It's a ad competitive intelligence tool. So really cool thing that you could play around with there. And then I'm super responsive on LinkedIn. I'm less active than I used to be. But that's probably the best place to get in touch with me would be on LinkedIn, or just shoot me an email, justin@InvisiblePPC.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Justin. We'll definitely have you back. Keep on talking about this stuff as PPC is evolving. We didn't even talk about the future of PPC, but we'll have you back on for that.
All right, thanks, Mark.
Thanks a lot, Justin. And thank you so much for listening. Be sure to hit that follow button so you get notified when all of our new episodes release. Please share this with that friend who's clueless about digital marketing. And don't forget to visit digitalmarketing.com where you can access all of our courses, certifications, and training programs. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you next time.